Now we can use different type of cybersecurity terms, right? Like the different terms that we can think of in cybersecurity. So I can say with a heading as cybersecurity terms. So what are the different terms we have in terms of in with respect to cybersecurity, right? So let us say we have some general cybersecurity terms that I can group into. So first one, I want to group it as general cybersecurity terms. Okay, the first term is of course cybersecurity. So it's more of, as you know so far, so it's more of the practice of protecting the systems and networks and data from any type of cyber threats. We already discussed it. Next term is your threat. So threat can be a potential danger, right? It could be a potential danger that can exploit any type of vulnerabilities to harm systems or data, right? So I can say a potential danger that can exploit vulnerabilities to harm systems or data. That is called as a threat. Next term is of course the term itself, which is vulnerability. What is vulnerability, right? Vulnerability could be defined as a weakness that is present in a application or a weakness that is present in a system, which the attackers can take into consideration and start exploiting that particular weakness. Okay, so that term is called as vulnerabilities. So I can say it is more of a weakness present in a system that attackers can exploit. Okay, next term is the term exploit itself. So which means it's a technique which is used by the attackers or the hackers to take advantage of any vulnerabilities. Okay, so a technique used by hackers to take advantage of vulnerabilities. All right, the next term is attack vector. Which is part of general cybersecurity term. So it's more of the method or pathway which is used by attackers to breach any type of security or existing security, right? So what are the different methods that the attackers can take or has taken? So the method or pathway used by attackers to breach security, okay, that is called as attack vectors. Next is risk. So risk is any type of potential for loss or damage that is there due to a cybersecurity threat. Okay, so the potential for loss or damage due to a cybersecurity threat, right? Next term or the next domain could be with respect to cyber attacks and threats. Cyber attacks and threats. So we can have different terms based on that. So first thing first is malware. So as I've told you earlier, malware is like malicious softwares, which is like viruses, worms, ransomware, spyware, right? So it's more of malicious software like viruses, worms, ransomware, spyware, etc. Next term, as I've told you earlier as well, is phishing. So you can look earlier, so just kind of fraudulent emails or any type of fraudulent messages, designed to steal any type of or leak any type of sensitive data of your organization, or might be any sensitive data for a particular user. So the trick that is being used, it is called as phishing, right? Next term is called as ransomware, which is very, very common. So ransomware is more of it's a malware. Let us say the attacker have introduced some malware that encrypts victims data and demands the payment for getting the decryption key, right? So demanding ransom or demanding payment for getting the decryption key. So I can say malware that encrypts a victim's data and demands a ransom, which is also called as payment for recovering the decryption key to get back the data, right? That is ransomware. Next, you have also gone through this DOS attack, as I've told you earlier. So DOS attack is kind of overloading a system to make it unavailable, right? Then there is another DOS attack type, which is called as DDoS, which is also called as distributed denial of service attack. So it's also a DOS attack which is carried out from multiple devices. So think like it's like a battalion of army which is targeting a particular server. Like let us say I've got 10 attackers targeting a single server. In that case, that attack is happening from multiple sources. So we call that as distributed denial of service attack. Okay, next we have got this man in the middle attack. So also we have discussed that. So it's kind of intercepting communication between two parties. Next we have the zero-day attack. We have also seen that zero-day attack is more of exploiting a vulnerability before the patch is made available, right, and for which the information is currently not known. And the next is social engineering, which we also know, social engineering. So it's kind of manipulating people to reveal a type of sensitive information, right? So what are the different security measures and technologies you should take? So number 3 is security measures and technologies. So this will be part of your the various cybersecurity terms. The first one is of course firewall, as I've told you. So firewall is a network security device that filters any type of incoming and outgoing connection. Antivirus software, as we know, so this is also part of it. Antivirus software, so it's a program that can detect and removes any type of malwares. Then the term is encryption. So it is a process by which the data can be encoded, so only unauthorized users can read it. Okay, that is encryption. Having MFA, that is multi-factor authentication, so using multiple methods to verify a user's identity. Using VPN, that is virtual private network, which is a tool that secures your internet traffic and mask your private IP addresses. That's your VPN. Having intrusion detection system and intrusion prevention system, so basically to monitor network for any suspicious activity and block any detected threats in real time, which is done by IDS and IPS, right? Likewise, you have got access control as another term, so which means restricting access to systems and data based on the various user roles that you can define. And next is penetration testing. Penetration testing is another term where you can simulate the cyber attacks to identify the security weakness of your organization, right? So you can do pen testing to simulate any type of real-time attacks that can happen, and find out the weakness and vulnerabilities that could be present in your application network in terms of application running on a particular hardware, whether the hardware can be getting compromised, right, whether the network needs some sort of security measures, etc. Can define the risk of that organization. So the common term is pen testing, right? So yeah, so these are my different terms that we have. Next is we can say about the different cybersecurity frameworks and compliance terms. So number 4 is cyber security frameworks and compliance term. So think of the term first of all as CIA triad. So it is more of a security model ensuring that confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data is always maintained. Okay, then the term is SOC, which is also called a security operations center. So it's kind of a centralized team that monitors and defends against your cyber threat. Then we have got NIST, that is National Institute of Standards and Technology. So it is a cybersecurity framework for which defines the best practices in various cybersecurity domain. Next term is called as GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation, which is a European data protection law. The next framework and compliance that you have is called as ISO 27001, which is an international standard for information security management. And the next compliance that you have is called as HIPAA. It is part of healthcare, so it is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is a US law protecting the healthcare data. Right now, regarding the next one, which is authentication and access control, we can use multiple terms, right? So whenever you think of authentication and access controls, there could be different terms. First term is authentication, as I've told you earlier. So it is a process by which the user's identity can be verified before granting the user access. Next is authorization, which means determining what action a user is allowed to perform on that particular data. Next term is least privilege principle, which is a very, very important term. Least privilege principle means granting the users only the minimum access that they need, okay, rather giving the entire like root level access or entire admin level access initially. Okay, next is role based access control, also called as RBAC. Role based access control, also called as RBAC, which means assigning the permission based on the job roles, right? So a sales user will have a different permission, your marketing user will have a different permission to access the data. So let us say I've got a data whose name is ABC. The sales user has read only permission to get the data and just do a read only operation, but the marketing user will have read and write permission for that ABC data. All right, next term is your single sign-on, SSO, which is also called a single sign-on. That means allowing the users to log in. So single sign-on. Okay, so it's a method by which the users can be allowed to log in to multiple application with only one set of credentials. So you just verify it once, apply your credential only once, but after verification you can go ahead and access any type of other applications. Next is your biometric authentication. Biometric authentication, okay, which means using fingerprints, facial recognitions, or any other biological traits for supporting authentication, right? So I hope these terms are quite clear so far. So you know that the various terms that is involved here. There is any questions, queries, reach out to us, we'll be happy to assist, and enjoy the course. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you.